Your money this week. Andrew and I are getting together to talk about how the markets perform. Stocks are down a little bit this week, more the US. International markets are flat. Bond yields are up. The war activity's up, although we're all sick and tired of talking about the war. It's impacted oil prices. Bond yields have ticked up. And I think, Andrew, you said we might be on the cusp of this thing just blowing up, not to use that term, too loosely, but getting a lot worse. And even though we're sick of talking about it, it's driving markets. And the other thing that we're maybe sick of talking about is AI, but that also seems to be driving markets this week. Plus, we have thoughts on a Jamie Dimon podcast and a very important move in the NBA if you're interested in following teams that aren't that interesting.
How about that?
How about that? You ready to roll?
Did you hear that thunder?
I did not hear that thunder. Is
Oh
that
man,
Marietta weather not too great right now?
it just shook the car.
Yeah. So first off, just wanted to ask you because you've been watching things a little bit more carefully than I have this week. I've been playing in a golf tournament. No big deal. We're in second
No
place in
big
our
deal.
no big deal. We're in second place in our flight. Moving days tomorrow, where we're going to clinch this thing. And by clinch, I'm just looking to gain the most weight and have the most drinks I can over a 4 day stretch. And
I like your odds at that.
we're heavily in the lead, although we have been golfing semi decently. So you've been looking at the market more closely than I have this week and different earnings, and you have a take on AI that maybe is a little different than the rest of the market participants I talked to.
Yeah, I feel like we previewed earnings season a couple weeks ago. We've talked about the bar being set high, concerns about would they be able companies not only beat on earnings but be able to raise guidance enough to satisfy the market. And then simultaneously, we've had a lot of discussions about is AI just propping up the market. I would argue that we've seen an awful lot of stock market resilience, especially here, on U.S. companies that are reporting this week, despite some cracks in the armor for AI. Google, parent company Alphabet, came out and said, "Hey, like we're not really sure where we're going in terms of ROI on this stuff. We're spending a ton of money. We think there's going to be margin compression." The market really hated that. And in some cycles, if this is an AI driven market only, I would think that we'd be looking at a market that's down significantly more. But as that has happened, we've seen, I would argue, very good fundamental reports from especially companies that are not necessarily AI related. And we're seeing a continually emerging view, I think, of a solid economy and a solid consumer here in the U.S. Ignore the AI thing, put it on pause for a moment. And Ben Nye, our chief investment officer here at Narwhal, he's using the illustration of a train specifically as it relates to manufacturing and the more industrial components of the U.S. economy. It's moving. It's not moving real quick. It's not going to accelerate real quickly. But once it starts going on this path, it's relatively hard to reverse course and hard to slow down. There might be a small limb on the track and it's just going to get bulldozed and things are heading in the right direction. I looked really closely we talked about the banks last week. I thought American Express would be really telling this week. They increased their guidance in terms of what they're seeing, like everybody else, seeing really high credit quality amongst their consumers, folks using their cards, and really, really low delinquencies. So those are kind of the two factors that I think have driven the market this week, despite the obvious headwind of a company as big as Alphabet coming up and saying, "Hey, I don't know that our AI things delivering quite what you guys want it to right now."
So you said not AI related, but are they tangentially AI related? Any of these companies, like the big banks that we talked about last week, they were making money, I think, on AI related capital raises and debt
Yep.
raises and equity issuance and deals and M&A. Are you seeing that, or is it completely or more delinked from AI?
In some regards, it's hard to say because right now AI is, if you go back 10 years ago, we would do a word count search on earnings reports and see who all mentioned blockchain. It was just such a thing to be like, oh, we're doing this on the blockchain now. And it's actually what we've always done, but now it's on the blockchain. And because we said blockchain 37 times in a conference call around our quarterly earnings release, people like us more. There's definitely a lot of that going on in the AI space where even companies that, maybe they're using AI on the fringe the way your business might or mine might. they're not AI companies. But I would say specifically when I talk about non-AI, I'm talking about folks that are not directly playing in the AI infrastructure build out, not data centers, not memory companies, not folks that are building their own LLMs and trying to get these products at the forefront, not necessarily software. ServiceNow would be an exception to that. They had really strong earnings in which they've made it very clear, hey, we want to be the leader and essentially synthesizing and curating how your firm is using AI at an enterprise level. And this is a company that was absolutely hammered 6 or 9 months ago for fear that they might be cannibalizing their own users with this approach, but they did really well. So there are AI players that are involved, but I wouldn't argue that ServiceNow is involved in kind of the infrastructure to the extent that Alphabet would be.
Yeah, and the semiconductor ETF that we talked about last week, it's down about 20% from the peak. Kind of a challenging second half to the week. It was up early, so slightly down this week. Semiconductors are down. Some of the big AI related names down or struggling, but you're saying there's baskets of the market that are not connected to it or directly connected to it that are doing well, and that may not be what people are noticing, just given
Yeah.
what all the oxygen is being focused on.
And I would say that we've got read throughs that I feel relatively confident in. Obviously, I don't get pre released earnings from anybody. I'd be on the lookout for Apple. I think Apple is going to potentially be in a troubled position, just given some people kind of pausing and scratching their head and saying how valuable are some of these AI initiatives. Take that combined with slower upgrade cycles that we've heard about from Verizon as well as AT&T, things that really impact iPhone sales. Apple seems like a company that, okay, we've probably heard enough to kind of read into their quarter. That doesn't mean we're right, but if I were setting expectations for that company, I would be saying, hey, it's probably not going to be a blowout quarter.
So then looking at bond yields, they peaked, I think, at just over 4.7, the 10-year this year. It's back down this week, sorry, not this year. It's back down a little bit to 4.681 as we're recording Friday afternoon. Most people are attributing the moves in yield to the conflict and oil prices. And, conflict heats up, oil prices go up, yields go up. The opposite happens, the opposite is happening. Is that essentially how you're looking at the 10-year right now?
It is. It is. I mean, I think that reports from people that seem to be informed suggest that President Trump and folks in the Oval Office have lost patience. This seems like something that's going to escalate and potentially escalate quite quickly from where it is now. What that means, I don't know. But I think there's certainly reason to expect volatility in energy. And right alongside that, you're going to see some rates staying high. I mean, the uncertainty factor is very much there. It's been interesting to me how quickly that war uncertainty has eroded any good vibes you had from positive inflation data. And that might sound obvious to you, but when you think about it, it's like, hey, these are actually kind of the same thing. If we're worried about what I viewed to be a temporary spike in inflation, and we're now also worried about basically the same war again, we should probably be thinking, hey, we're going to have some higher inflation prints again, at least in the short term.
Yeah, the fact that in the White House they're frustrated that this is taking so long and that they can't wrap this up, and that all the quotes that you see in the journal about how they feel about this is just extremely frustrating. And I think a great exercise in witnessing, sorry, frankly, stupidity in history. Nobody has wanted Iran to have a nuclear bomb, right? It's not like prior administrations were like, hey, it'd be great. What if we just let them have it and just even things out and let's see
Yeah.
how it goes, right? And so they weren't sitting. Oh, that'd be great. And it wasn't as if like prior militaries, I would imagine leadership in the U.S. were like, hey, it's going to take is this 2 week bombing campaign, and we can completely change everything over there.
Yeah.
And every other president's been like, nah, it's just 2 weeks. I don't know. Sounds like a lot. I got
Yeah.
enough going on. I don't really want to go down that path. And then
There's
this.
an inconsistency to say both I'm the first president to ever do anything about this, but then not really like go all in. It's this is like a broken analogy that I just thought of, but Sammy, if I were to like tell you like I was the first person, this is not a true statement, but if I were to be like, I'm the first person from my family to go to college, you might think one thing and be like, that's pretty cool. I think that narrative would fall apart if I was like, yeah, I went for a week and I dropped out, but I'm the first one who ever did it. So you can't say, hey, I'm the first one to try to do something about it and then kind of halfway do it. And I'm not saying we should do more. I'm not saying, but it's just this, they're so frustrated that in the same way, we have not wanted them to have a nuclear bomb. Similarly, like they're going to fight back some. That's,
Yeah.
that's how
What
war
a
goes.
what a, what a what a revelatory experience, that
Yeah.
this White House is going through right now, and it's just frustrating. So,
I
that
don't think
I
you should be allowed to be president if you haven't been in a bar fight. Just throwing that out there. It's a new, it seems like if Donald Trump had ever been in a bar fight, we would know all about it,
really. All right,
doesn't
say
it?
more about this bar fight theory of history.
I just think there's a general. I would imagine, and maybe it's not a bar fight, but a scuffle at a tavern. I imagine there at some point we had our first president who had never been in a bar fight, and I don't know who that was, but I would suggest to you, I don't know, maybe we could ask Chat GPT or something. I would suggest to you that things got worse after that point. I mean, there's something about you know, getting your tail kicked when you've done something you shouldn't have done, or seeing, hey, do I actually have the metal to get up off the floor and keep going?
I'm not gonna
I don't know.
lie, you've completely lost me, but we're gonna go with that.
Somebody out there listening, I think our super user in Philadelphia he's gonna get it.
I think he's going to confirm that he is lost on Barfight Island with me. So, yeah, I'm sorry that the war, isn't going super fast, and you're finding out that what every other, administration did before you, which is, you got to devote more than 2 weeks to this intractable problem. And I'm not saying that they should do it, go all in more, or they should stop, or they should have, y- you know, pressed harder from the get-go. But the fact that they didn't think that this would be difficult is just, annoying. So anyway, enough about that. So I asked you to listen to this podcast that caught my attention. It is the Master Investor Podcast with Wilfred. I
Oh,
don't
by
know.
the way, did you catch that he goes by Wilf?
Yeah.
Wilf.
Well, at least the guy who was interviewing the Master Investor Podcast with Wilfred Frost. Shocking, a British guy with that name. You probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have guessed it. He was talking to Jamie Dimon recently, and this was an hour-long conversation. And the headline that came out of that podcast, which is how I found it, was that Jamie Dimon was saying he wouldn't be a buyer of bonds and he really wouldn't be a buyer of stocks right now. But when you listen to the episode,
I literally did not even notice him talking about not buying bonds.
yeah, so he did say that was clear. He said he would not be a buyer of long dated bonds, and the Wilf clarified that he was talking about the 10 year, and he did say the 10
Yeah.
year. And then he asked him about the S&P, and Diamond said, well, I don't buy, the index. I'll buy individual names if I find them very attractive. And he says, well, have you found anything attractive lately? And have you bought anything lately? And he said, no. And the headline was, essentially Diamond, says, we're not buying stocks, not buying bonds. And I just wanted your take on both of those things because, as he started getting into and as he started getting into the explanation on fixed income, he, brought in where yields were, where inflation was, and it was the whole deficit story again,
Yep.
right? It's one of these deficit guys where it's like, this isn't going to end well. I don't know when it's not going to, I don't know when it's going to flip the other way, but, at some point the yield story is going to get a lot worse. These bonds are getting cheaper and cheaper, but, I'm expecting, um, the
Calamity.
well, yeah, yields to pick up and to keep going up, and which means bond prices go down, and he's not attracted to this entry point. So we could talk about the fact that yields are up, 4.6, 4.7, mortgage rates are up. Probably has a lot to do with the war. Probably has to do with the inflationary effects of higher oil. And in fact, when oil backs down, yields back down. But to the flip side, there are a lot of people who are just not excited about owning fixed income because they see this mid to longer term risk that they can't fully tell you when it's going to materialize. And they are, I think I had one point asked you, do you think yields are just going to keep up going up and up to the right ever so slightly, and the range will keep ticking upwards? And they seem to have that view.
Yep. They have that view. It's also, though, I would argue it's not a new view.
No,
Many of
he's
these,
just the
many
latest.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, many of these people, I mean, summer of last year, I mean, we had people that were worried that, the 10 years going to blow out to 6.5, 6.8, quickly, and these things were going to happen. I, I think what was interesting, and I happen to, I think I'm maybe a bigger Jamie Dimon fan than you are. I tend to like him. I would actually like reference, and this is going to sound very critical of him, and definitely going to sound like a smart aleck, and I don't intend it to. But I actually would liken his answers on that to something else he said in the interview, in which he talked about the insecurity that can cause great leadership. And he talked about people that, hey, you might be the best mortgage trader in the world, and you get promoted. Now you're over six different areas of trading, and then you get promoted, you get over all of this stuff. I took his personal view on both the bond market as well as the equity market as presented as relatively humbly, and if anything, maybe like a little bit caged and like, I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. I actually appreciated that although he had that view, I didn't feel like he was real gung ho about it. I think he was relatively measured in his concern that is shared by a lot of people. But I would almost push back and say, okay, well, when did you start saying this, and when will you stop? That's the thing that's hard to discern. I thought his answer on equities was particularly a non-answer when he was like, "Have you seen anything attracting?" He was like, "Well, I don't." Like he said no, but it wasn't like absolutely not. He seemed like a guy that would entertain it. I think in general, we can focus on the deficit, and I think we should. I think he was right. He went on a long rant during that same portion about trying to get people in there that want to fix the deficit, both in terms of what it is on an ongoing basis as well as the cumulative impact of this amount of debt being out there. Um, but it's quite clear the guy has a problem with it, and because of that, he's not real comfortable with it. I'd be very curious what he actually owns. Um, the guy's what's he worth, Sammy? Like 2 billion, 3 billion?
I don't know.
I,
Yeah.
I think he's worth billions. And you kind of say, well, what do you own if you don't own stocks and bonds? And do you not own any of these, or are you just holding them because you've already bought them?
Yeah, you probably do like him a little bit better than I mean, I don't have a personal feeling about him, but there is a halo effect around this guy because he guided JP Morgan through the
Yeah,
great financial crisis. They did well. They scooped up some bad banks. They were never, you know, under duress like the rest of the big banks, and he's, continued to do well running JP Morgan. He's not been shy about expressing his opinion on things that maybe, he are not in his wheelhouse. It's not
very
like,
pro war, very
well,
pro
very
war.
pro war, but it's not like I come on here and I talk about how to run a good NBA franchise better than, other people that run it. I stick to my
You would
knitting.
never.
I would
You
never.
would
I don't
never.
know why he can't stick to his, but I did get the sense that he was more bearish on fixed income and equities. But at the same time, I read this article 3 4 weeks ago where he was hawking SpaceX stock
Oh
because
yeah.
JP
I mean, he
Morgan was in
interviewed
the
Elon
IPO. He
Musk,
was
and
hawking it to JP Morgan private bank clients. And
yeah,
how's that doing? It's busted below its IPO price. Uh,
yeah.
I think it's at like 113 or 114.
And
So
he would have laughed all the way to the bank, but he was already at it.
he was. Oh, wow, that's a good one. So, do you think he has been in a bar fight or not? Just using that theory of
I
leadership,
would say I think Jamie Dimon probably has been in a bar fight.
probably multiple. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he sounds like it, and that's might sound insensitive because I know he had throat cancer, but he sounds like he's a
Oh, wow.
rough customer.
You just went there. All right. And I don't know, since I'm not sure I fully understand the bar fight theory on leadership, if it's a good thing that I think he's been in one or not. But you can explain that to me offline.
We'll do it at a bar. We'll fight about it.
We will not. You are at least 2 feet taller than I am, and maybe 50 pounds heavier. But it's all muscle mass.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I saw. We're going to turn to something in a second, but I saw an interesting article in the journal, which I'm going to share this week in my weekly reads. And I'd had this thought. I was curious. There's a lot of collision courses that could be happening with the labor market, and one of which is, AI is going to take a lot of jobs and basically going to decimate the labor market. There's that one view. Then you look at birth rates and, population growth in the US, it's slowing. You look at immigration reform, or, whatever the heck it is we're doing now, where there's less people coming into the country and some people being asked to leave, somewhat forcefully. Is it possible that there is a good news story with this AI labor market disruption, that we're actually going to need AI to do a lot of jobs to help with the fact that we have a slowing population growth and we're losing people due to less people coming to the country and people being kicked out?
Yeah, and I would argue, I think you and I both would speak with more of an informed and educated view, specifically here in the United States. But birth rates are declining everywhere, just
No,
about.
I was focusing on
And
the
that's
US, but yeah, yeah.
I think globally, anything that would apply to the United States in terms of the benefit of efficiency that can be picked up where we don't need a physical body present, I think will translate globally. I think there is going to be an element of that. I'm still of the camp that I think we're actually going to have a short term window in which, I mean, you look at the number of AI related jobs that are out there, like for humans to do. I think it's going to take some time before we start really seeing um, repercussions in the workforce at scale. Obviously, there's going to be pockets. I think it was Uber this week said that they were laying off X% of their customer service team. And I got to be honest, I didn't know they had humans that did that. I mean, if I order food from Uber and it's the wrong thing, I hit a button and I get refunded. If I get a ride, it just cancels. No one calls me and is like, "Hey, Andrew, I am so sorry. I'm with the customer service team, and I wanted you to know that Sammy clocked out early and he's not picking you up." I didn't even know
Oh,
they had
now
like
I'm
humans
driving you
doing that.
around in Ubers. Like I've lost the bar fight, and I'm your Uber
I
driver.
mean, it's been a tough weekend, but
Yeah,
I view that as an area where it's like, well, yeah, obviously it makes no sense that there would be humans, lots of them, working in Uber's customer service department. So I think there's going to be those disruptions, but there's also an element of who wanted those jobs, or any of the people that would want those jobs in the future potentially not here, or just there's not enough people in general and nobody wants a customer service job. And I think there are going to be some benefits there. I think I'm very hesitant to really freak out about the jobs apocalypse that's coming from AI. I don't think it's going to be all bad at all.
yeah, and I think this article put a different spin on it, to me. And some would say after this week's video, we may not need guys to record videos about finance going forward. Those are two jobs that the market does not need to replace. So we do have some super users who have made a request for us to talk about LeBron signing in Philadelphia. And for those of you who aren't up to date on your insufferable trivia, that's LeBron James and the Philadelphia 76ers. That news came out today. These are some of our, most loyal listeners. They tend to listen the week after. Like I
Yeah.
feel like they think the
Your
show's
money
called
next
Your
week.
Money. Yeah, no, they think it's Your Money last week. We get comments from them on Monday or Tuesday, like, "Hey, just listen." I'm like, "Great, sorry to interrupt your,
Yeah.
weekend. How did you start the week financially, not knowing what happened at the end of last
I
week?"
know.
It's a
You got to
disaster.
worry about
So
them.
so one here's my view on it, and I love Jalen Brown. I'm a huge JB guy. He's still over my shoulder. I've not replaced his bobblehead on the bookshelf, but he's insufferable. And so what the Sixers have done now is collect the roster of it's the most insufferable NBA roster, between Embiid flopping and injured and arrogant and whiny, and JB, who's got a lot of gripes and a lot of causes, and LeBron, who invented being insufferable in the NBA, and their coach, who could not find anything he wouldn't whine about in the course of a regular season basketball game or playoff game. They've put them all into one nice little locker room, and in a city, by the way, that is very lovable, not insufferable at all, with the most rational fan base. Guys, enjoy. You have one basketball, one microphone, one team, one jersey. I'm sure it's going to work out wonderfully for all of you.
Do you think I think if you were worried about, losing the Jalen Brown trade, and you certainly did, but if you were worried that you were going to have to watch this guy just hoist trophy after trophy in a nearby city, I think you can rest easy. Uh, I I am curious. This is a question. I know there's probably the younger folks out there that listen. I don't know if you have a lot of young folks listening, but I'd
It's a
imagine
very
a couple
barbelled
hundred
audience.
thousand.
Like I forced my
Yeah,
kids to listen, so they're down
yeah,
here, and then
yeah.
it's a lot of finance
Do
folks.
you think do you think that if LeBron can chase down Jerry West and lose an eighth final series, he's only lost six, I think.
Oh wow.
Um, Jerry West has the record. Do you think they'll replace the logo with him?
I think it's worth a shot. I would say Philly would have to get to the finals twice, which I don't
Which you
see.
wouldn't like, but you wouldn't like that as a Celtics guy. It means you're not getting to the finals.
Right. But I also I think it's a very low risk situation.
Yeah.
You've got I would say four ball dominant players and way too much personality. I look forward to watching them, implode
What's
during the
what's
course of the
more
regular
likely?
season.
What's more likely? LeBron gets another title or he loses another finals?
Oh,
So
wow.
I think they're both. Yeah, it's
I would have to say that he loses another finals. That
yeah,
yeah.
which would put him in rarefied air. I mean, it'd put him number two. Right now, I know a lot of people love talking the LeBron legacy. He is in the top 26 all time in championships won,
Well, it's
and
just a
that's pretty cool.
it's it's a guy in Embiid who can't win in the playoffs, and it'd be a miracle if we saw him get to the NBA Finals with a guy who's regularly in the finals and
But can't win the
loses.
finals. Yeah,
Right. So
yeah,
yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a great bet. I'm going to get the folks at FanDuel on it. You know how every other podcast we listen to is either sponsored by FanDuel or DraftKings.
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
see
yeah.
if we can work that in just for
Dude, that would
one
be
just for
one
one
bet.
bet. One bet.
One bet.
What's more likely? Yeah. So, enjoy Philadelphia 76ers. We're raising a banner right now, the most insufferable team of the 26-27 season. Congrats. I look forward to watching the implosion.
I feel like I need to come to a Sixers Celtics game.
You should. You should come in Boston. It's much nicer than Philadelphia. You let me know. We'll record live
We'll do it.
and we'll get it done. So when does college start? When are we what's going on here?
I mean, we're getting close. We're what, like 40 something days out. I'm ready
40
for college football. We will have to do.
Well, I'm going to two
I
games
think.
this year, and I don't think you're going to be at either
Yeah,
one of them, which is
I
shocking.
know. I'm trying to figure out the Alabama situation.
All right.
Trying to figure it out. It's
I would
it's a work
say
in progress.
what I would recommend is pull your kids out of youth sports.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're
Well,
going to
that's
get in the way of you being able to do stuff on the weekends, I don't think that's a fair
it
trade-off
is.
at all.
I will say it's gotten pretty. I've put myself into this corner where from day one I've really trained my son, who's about to be 8, to love football. And the downside of that is they start playing football,
Yeah, I
and
could see that.
and and you have to go watch them play football. And I've somewhere signals got crossed. I think he thinks I like watching kids play football. Like I like watching college kids play football.
Yeah,
Not but but I'm a great father, so I do go to those games. He's strapping the pads on next week, getting ready.
I love it. Yeah, I'm going to two games. Looking forward to it. I think we're going to Bama at LSU, and then we're going to see your Bulldogs lose at Bama. Um, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I'm accepting invites to other SEC cities near me.
Yeah, you need to make a couple trips. I think we need to plot out like a 4-year plan for you of like these are the stadiums you're going to, map it out, road trip it.
I'm good.
The
Last year we got Texas out of the way.
Yeah.
Your one of your least favorite teams, and
Did you see Pavia got cut?
I did. Shocker.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Shocking.
How did he make it? To begin with. All right. So we digress. Is the SEC going to start its own division or whatever that thing is?
I think they're headed that way. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if I'm for or against that, to be honest. I think everybody else I talk to, I've got a lot of college football opinions that I can't decide if they're like unpopular or if I just listen to people that I don't agree with. But I think most SEC fans want us to spin out. I don't know what the benefit of that is
I don't know. I think we
because,
should start weaving some of those opinions into the tail end of these episodes just to
yeah,
give you an outlet.
yeah, get the people going. I know I've really missed, I have a hard time when the season's available is just baseball. Like when it's just baseball, I just start really kind of. I went to the Braves game yesterday. It was great, noon game. You know, good
I went to
time.
my
But
first Red Sox game in a long time. I housed 4 Fenway Franks. Was going for more, but then just didn't feel good. Didn't think I
dude,
could keep going.
I did 9 dogs yesterday.
Wow. That's
Yeah, no big
hilarious.
deal.
I texted my wife that I'm coming home from the game. I've had 9 hot dogs, and she was freaking out. I'd only had 4. I can't imagine how you felt that night.
I don't want to say how many beers I had, but it was a similar number, and I was fine.
Well, my son was telling me, I don't know, some challenge, a beer and a hot
Yeah,
dog an inning. Is that what you did?
I'm I'm not saying I did,
All right, nice. All
but
right, so is there anything?
I will say actually I think he witnessed some young folks at our office try to do it last year, and they got very close and failed miserably. And I lost so much respect for them after the game yesterday when I was like, that was not hard.
You didn't fire them, did you?
I'm thinking about it. I'm going to make them try it one more time because that's the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah,
And
that's
then we'll
good
fire them.
leadership. That's
Yeah.
leadership from a guy who's been in
We,
18 bar
we
fights.
should,
Yeah,
we should cut all of this.
all of them. Yeah, this is probably the best part of the podcast, to be honest with you. All right, so I will let you go on that. We're gonna chat next week. In the meantime, um, if you're still with us, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out Andrew at his team at Narwhal Capital, the morning market briefing podcast. Where they talk about the markets every day at 8:30 live, or it's released later in the morning on YouTube. And check out my blog, thebostonadvisor.com, where I share my weekly reads, this video, and original content. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Awesome. See you, man.
See you, bud.